All right, at this time, we will call to order the City of Kenai Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for December 27th, 2023. Will you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item A2, roll call, please.
Chair Tway.
Here.
Commissioner Greenberg is absent. Commissioner Fikes? Commissioner Fikes?
Here.
Commissioner Glendetting?
Here.
Commissioner Woodard?
Here.
Vice Chair Halsted?
Happy to be here.
And Commissioner Costin?
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Item A3, agenda and consent agenda approval. Do I have a motion to,
Sorry, request, since Diane is here, we actually have to remove her excused absence from the agenda. So
Sorry,
we
the
jumped
norms
the
worked. I
gun on
wasn't
it.
sure if they were gonna work.
so we want to just pull that off the consent agenda? Or?
Someone just says, I move to approve the agenda consent agenda with the removal of that item.
All right. Vice Chair Halsted.
I move we approve the agenda and consent agenda with the exception of the removal of Diane Fike's excused absence.
All right, do we have a second? Okay. All right, could the clerk please read the consent agenda into the record?
You have approval of minutes, regular meeting of November 29th, 2023, and that is your consent agenda.
All right, are there any public comments on any of the consent agenda items just read into the record by the clerk? Seeing none, is there any objections to approving the consent agenda and agenda? Seeing none, they are approved. Item C, scheduled public comment, we have none. Item D, unscheduled public comment. Anyone wishing to come forward and speak to an item not on tonight's agenda? I don't see any of those, so we will move on to item E, consideration of plats. E1 is resolution PZ 2023-22, recommending approval for a preliminary plat, Sprucewood Glen subdivision number 11, for a replat of Lot 2A and Tract F, Sprucewood Glen subdivision number 10, and Tract F-1B, Sprucewood Glen subdivision number 3 in the general commercial zoning district. Can I get a motion, please? Vice Chair Halsted.
I move we approve resolution PZ 2023-22 recommending approval for preliminary plat, Sprucewood Glen subdivision.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, staff report.
Thank you, Chair Toy, Commissioners, and members of the public. So before you is a preliminary plat for your consideration. The preliminary plat is to merge the 3 parcels and then subdivide it into 2. As you see here, in red are the 3 parcels. Current uses on these lots, one being the new convenience stores, the Three Bears convenience stores and the Shell gas station. On one of the other lots is a retention basin, and the smaller lot off of turn is a vacant lot. The zoning district for these parcels is general commercial. The replat area of all these 3 lots combined to be 5.265 acres, and then they're going to be subdivided approximately a little bit over 2.5 quarter of an acre. And then you have your surrounding uses to the north. You have the Spur Highway, Kenai Spur Highway. You have the McDonald's. You have the Aspen Hotel. In the south, you have apartments and Turn Avenue. And to the west, you have Three Bears, the medical clinic, and the O'Reilly's. And then to the east is a city-owned lot that is vacant. In your packet, you'll have their preliminary plat. I know it's really hard to see, but ultimately, during the review process, as planning reviews building permits as well, there are above ground propane or above ground tanks, which for building codes must maintain a minimum buffer 25 feet from property line. So the applicant has demonstrated that. If you zoom into your plat, that rectangular, smaller rectangular with a larger rectangular to show the 25-foot setback. So this plat does meet the setbacks and doesn't make the existing building non-conforming. It meets code as is. And with any findings of preliminary plats, access is off of the spur and Turn Avenue, which are city maintained, and the spur being a state maintained road, and utilities are available for these two lots. And any future connections will be subject to the Public Works Department regulations and permitting. Minimum lot areas met, as well as minimum width. And that's pretty much conclusions of the findings when it comes to these plats. Well, mostly when you're merging a plat that's been platted over 10 times, because as you can tell, it's Sprucewood Glen subdivision number 11. At this point, there's really nothing more to add on because most of it's been developed over time. Easement's been established. Shared parking agreement is already in place. So the proposed preliminary plat generally meets the requirements for our subdivision regulations as well as our development requirement table. So staff is recommending that your commission adopt Resolution PZ 2023-22 for Sprucewood Glen subdivision number 11. And subject to the listed conditions of approval, and realistically it was just one minor typo of reference to a previous preliminary plat. That concludes staff's presentation, and I did see that the applicant is here on Zoom.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Young, if you have anything to add to that, now would be a good time to go ahead and do that. State your name for the record, please.
Jason Young, PO Box 59, Kasilof. Just a surveyor working on this project, here to answer any questions. Very straightforward replat.
All right, thank you. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Young? All right, seeing none, some might come up still, so just hang tight. And we have anyone else? I guess that's all we need to have, huh? So we'll go ahead and bring it back to the commission for discussion. Any discussion? Commissioner Glendenning.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Twait. Yeah, I think this is a straightforward representation of the business intent, and it cleans up a little small orphan lot and combines it into a greater project. And I think it represents the planning of Three Bears, and the city should be proud to accept the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? I have one. It's probably not the right time to even ask it, but for Director Mitchell, not regarding this, but I noticed that this imagery for where the Jack White building is, it looks like there's certainly an encroachment. Is that something we want to look at down the road?
Thank you, Chair Toy, for that question. Yes, we're actually relying on the borough to fix that because they have the staff capacity and the expertise. I know that's been longstanding before I started. The previous city manager said that that was something that they were working on and relying on the borough to do to correct that alignment. Mostly because this is 2D and the earth being 3D, it's kind of hard to make those perfect lines when it comes to this.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you. All right. Any other discussion regarding PZ 2023-22? All right. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fikes?
Yes.
Commissioner Costin?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodard?
Yes.
Commissioner Glendenning?
Yes.
Vice Chair Halsted?
Yes.
Chair Tweet?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Young. We will move on to item F, public hearings. F1 is Resolution PZ 2023-25, recommending approval for a variance permit to allow an off-premise sign on a property located at 11631 Kenai Spur Highway in the Central Mixed Use Zoning District. Can I get a motion, please? Vice Chair Halsted.
I move we approve Resolution PZ 2023-25, recommending approval for a variance permit.
All right, second.
I'll second.
All right, Director Mitchell, staff report.
Thank you, Chair Twait, Commissioners. So before you hear, we're going to pull up the presentation. You're good. So before you is a variance permit for an off-premise sign. As being in the CMU Central Mixed Use District, sign code says that an off-premise sign is prohibited, but like most things, there's a caveat that if you want to deviate from the sign code or obtain relief, you can apply for a variance permit, which the applicant has. The intent of the off-premise sign is the applicants are owners of the property south of this property where the off-premise sign would be. You see in the aerial on the screen in red is the property where the sign will be installed, and in blue outline is where the business location, where the clinic is. And you can kind of see where the site layout challenges are when it comes to this business location. So the current use of the site where the sign would be on is vacant, and the land use for this area is central commercial. Surrounding uses are the Kenai Spur Highway, you have restaurants to the north and hotel. Oops, I did not update that, I apologize. So across the streets are retail, and you have to the east the Russian Orthodox property, where a little bit further south to it is the cemetery, and then you have a vacant business lot that's been abandoned to the east, and then you have the chamber, and to the south you have more residential and office uses. So here you see on the screen is where the approximate location would be. The applicants are proposing an internally illuminated pole sign with approximate 75 square foot sign face and approximately 18 foot tall. The intent is to promote and identify the medical clinic, which, as noted in the staff report, is under construction for expansion, which was previously kind of split clinic and coffee, is now going to be entirely a clinic. What you don't see on this, but in the previous plat, just to the north of the building, used to be an alleyway, and which was vacated in previous plats. And so you can kind of tell with the building, it actually doesn't face the street. If you've ever driven on this property, the main entrance is to the south. So in terms of street frontage and with the city-owned property with trees, the visibility of this business location is limited. And so therefore the applicant is proposing where if they own this property, you know, they would have been allowed to place a sign where it's approximately shown on here with the arrow. And in red there is kind of showing the adjustment of the mapping is off. So where if it was adjusted where the property lines would have been. So when it comes to variance permits, there are criteria that must be met. All conditions must be met according to the variance permit. And so those four, and I have a few photos to show as I talk about these findings. The first criteria is just, is there a special condition or circumstance that are present, which is peculiar to the site and not applicable to other zoning districts. As mentioned, the way the building is laid out, the frontage is kind of facing backwards to the rear, and the back of the building is facing the street. So here you see a rendering of where it would potentially be placed. So with it being set back at least 86 feet away, the clinic, it's quite fairly set back compared to others. Most businesses, you know, you have a front yard setback of 20. Here, because the city owns a property in front of this one, it's set back 86 feet away. So in comparison to signage and stuff, it's harder to see. And if you're heading south from the spur, you're going uphill. And so even with the lower signage, you wouldn't even see that visibility. So with the pole sign, staff finds that it is appropriate for this location and where it's at. And for, as expressed by the applicant, you know, I sat with them a few times trying to figure out how to make this work on their own property. So they have sought various options, and at the end of the day, this seems to be the most viable. And of course, there's no guarantee, as this is a variance permit, but they're asking for your approval tonight. And the second criteria is that this is not something that they have caused, that they're now asking that your commission to make an exception. As I noted in the staff report, this property has been platted like this, dating as back as the 60s. So it's not that they replatted and made this lot set back further. It continues to remain the same layout further back in this jutted out right away that owns by the state. So nothing that they made an inconvenience to themselves. But at the end, we want to promote businesses, and signage is very important, mostly for a clinic. Criteria 3, the granting of the variance shall not authorize a use that is not permitted. In the CMU, a clinic is a permitted use, and while they're expanding it, it continues to be a permitted use. A sign itself does not really affect the use itself. So continuing on outlining the rest of the criteria, you have criteria 4, the granting of a variance shall be a minimum variance that will provide for the reasonable use of the land. So granting this to be installed on the property as noted would meet setbacks, heights, and size requirement if this was on their property. So they're not asking for a variance beyond what we would allow to other properties fronting the spur. It's just the fact that in this zone, off-premise signs are prohibited. With that being said, in the CMU sign ordinance, it doesn't really specify setback requirements like other zoning districts, which is odd to me. But for consistency, I am asking that your commission consider a minimum 20-foot setback from the northeast corner of that city lot and a 10-foot setback from the street frontage along Kenai Spur Highway to minimize any visual obstruction and interference of any future right-of-ways. This is a photo that I took when I was putting the noticing on sign. And to all the further note that there is a pole sign just to the east of this property, the Coffee Time, that's been abandoned, and you see our Kenai Historic District sign. So by incorporating this staff's recommendation of setbacks, we are anticipating that we're not blocking existing signs as well, and that we provide adequate buffer when there's turns, right turn in and right turn out, that the sign doesn't impede in visibility. And lastly, criteria 5 is the granting of this variance shall not be based upon other non-conforming land uses or structures within the same land use or zoning district. The business location presents its own unique circumstance due to how it's originally platted and how the right-of-way of Kenai Spur was changed over time. So staff finds that the granting of this variance permit is not based upon any other non-conforming status of the land or the structure. And staff complied with the public notice, and therefore staff finds that this variance permit meets all the criteria as required and is recommending your commission approve resolution PZ 2023-25 for the approximately 75 square foot sign face on a pole sign, eternally illuminated and not to exceed 18 foot on the property at 11631 Kenai Spur Highway. So that concludes staff's presentation, and happy to answer any questions your commission may have.
All right, thank you. You want to wait till we have public testimony, or you got a question now?
I'll just step out there and speak. Sure, go ahead.
All right, at this time, we'll open it up for public testimony. If you'd like to come forward and add anything else that Director Mitchell didn't.
We do have a letter that was written by the owner.
Yep, if you can come up there, that way we can get you on recording that way. So you might have to push that button there to turn the red light on. There you go. And if you can just state your name for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Jason Yeoman, one of the owners of the building and land. So I got a letter here from the tenant and owner of Honesty Family Practice. I'm going to correct it a little bit, but she's addressed, or he is addressing, Dear Esteem Planning and Zoning Committee, we are submitting written comment for a sign to be placed close to the Kenai Spur Highway for visibility of Odyssey Family Practice located at 11595 Kenai Spur Highway in Kenai. The Kenai Peninsula has become grossly overserved with all the recent departures from the area and even the medical field itself. Knowledge of where to gain emergency services and health care when in the critical moments of needing it is hard to find. Odyssey Family Practice and is soon to be open. Urgent care facility wishes to place a lightened sign close to the highway to be a beacon of help to those in need of health care and emergency services. The drive farther into Kenai or worse into Soldotna can be a source of anxiety and loss of vital moments in receiving care. We at Odyssey Family Practice run a facility as servants to our community. Therefore, we wish to become more visible to those in need. We have heard many times from individuals, "Oh, I don't know where that clinic is." We have been open for over 4 years and have done all we can to be visible. Due to the location of the building in relation to the highway, we have been unsuccessful. We serve our community well and wholeheartedly with our facility and services, and are often visible as a team in our community events. We sponsor many of our youth and adult organizations. A sign would go far in having our facility be recognized as a beacon of help to critical and often fearful moments. Thank you for your time and consideration. Odyssey Family Practice.
Very good. You have anything else you want to add?
I think Miss Linda there represented the presentation pretty well. It is a very difficult situation to be having a location where it's at. So we most definitely would appreciate you guys supporting getting a sign there.
Okay. I'll see if anyone has any questions for you. You might have to come back up, but we'll see. All right. Anyone else wishing to testify? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Glendenning.
Thank you, Chairman Twait. Yeah, looking at this particular section of the highway, and then on our page 36, we have the yellow outline, and that's the visitor center, correct? Depicted there? I believe this building that is being resurrected was created in the 1960s. Was that right? In 1960, the highway ran closer to that building, so it would have been on the road. And as you see just here in this, you can see that there's various widths and jogs on this highway, and it's something that in future times may have to be taken care of. And perhaps that alleyway that was abandoned perhaps was the access back into this building when it was an automotive parts. So the building location is unfortunate, but when it was built, the highway ran right by it. And so this is just a very good reason for us to accept the variance, in that the highway moved and the building didn't, and they were disadvantaged. Is that your understanding?
Yes, sir, that's my understanding. If you look at the building, the front is basically not facing the highway. This was built in 1963, I believe, and with the change of the road, most definitely made the backside of the highway kind of your frontage now. We fully intend on trying to change that look of it being a back of a building. Most definitely, this is going to also be one of the steps that we take to move forward, making this building more appealing to the public, is having a sign.
Yeah, thank you. As a follow-up, the main highway, when this was built, ran right in front of and adjacent to the sidewalks where Paradisos is. Okay, and so you can see that the bend that it makes it goes right where the visitor center is, okay, and of course that has been appropriated now for its present use. So everything moved but the building, and now we have a golden opportunity to fix it. And I think that's my recollection, because I remember when the road was moved. Thank you.
Commissioner Fikes, did you have something earlier? You were-
I was just curious, this is one occupant of your property. Is that going to impact any of your other companies, or is there anything in the future that would be a hindrance to have the sign?
I'm not really understanding your question.
So your building houses more than one, does it have a coffee shop and a medical facility, or just a medical facility?
So last year, the coffee shop opted not to renew their lease. So we had two tenants. The coffee shop decided not to extend their lease, and Odyssey Family Practice has taken over the remaining square footage, and so they'll be the one and only tenant in that building right now.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Halsted.
I think I was just going to kind of echo Ms. Fikes on that is, would there be a potential down the road to maybe if Odyssey backed out, go back to a multi-tenant facility? And in that instance, would it be wise to maybe make accommodations in that sign for multiple occupants, two signs, or could you add on to that sign down the road with an additional variance?
Well, so if you look at the lot itself, it's almost 5 acres. There's other potential opportunities for this lot as well. So there's a potential of maybe building more buildings. Depends on what the community need is. So we own other properties besides this one, and we've developed and rehabilitated other properties, and so that is a potential, making this property more accessible to other companies or businesses that would be interested in the location.
Okay,
Almost done.
and I guess that would be a question I would ask Director Mitchell maybe too, is, so could they have, we would just make provisions down the road if they want to come back and add more signs underneath that one, or would we have to, could we clean that up right now, or we want to just take this one and call it good?
I think it's appropriate best practice just approve what they need now, unless there's clear because I'm going to tell you right now, I went through all variance permits that's for off-premise signs, and there are a lot of them that were never gone back to see if they still exist or things that were temporary. I worry that if they were to build another one, a variance permit doesn't show if they can't find this last one on this until we have better record keeping. It's just better to assess what is being requested now than anticipating, because how about it's 10 years from now when they expand and we're going to have to dig for a variance permit 10 years. It's just not good practice. So I just recommend your commission approve what's requested now, and if they wanted to expand the footprint or the sign face, then they come back and ask for it to be reassessed at that time, because you don't know what changes will be around. Maybe there's another pole sign down the way. How is this going to be conflicted or compatibility?
Thank you.
Just finishing
Yep.
my thought is all. Again, I would be in favor of this. I think it's a great opportunity for a very good business for the Kenai Peninsula to be able to present itself. It's definitely a professional sign. I think it's following our initial goals towards appropriate sign usage in the future. So I think it's a great idea, and I'm very much in support of this.
Commissioner Fikes?
I just had a quick question. You had mentioned it was going to be possibly lighted, so is there any concerns with the surrounding residential areas as far as the visibility or anything? Is that something that we might hear from in the future?
I'll let Director Mitchell, there wouldn't be any residential areas around there, but go ahead, Director Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair Twait and Commissioner Fikes. Yes, because it's off the spur. There aren't, in this corridor, there aren't really residential. I mean, further north, you have the Canisius Maintenance Yard, and then further south, you have the Visitor Center. Across the street, you have retail, so this wouldn't be affected. And as Mr. Yeoman mentioned, it's a 5-acre lot. To the south is further away. It's in a cabinet that's internally illuminated, which is very similar to other properties that could have this sign on their property without a variance. So I don't see this as a concern for this particular property.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Woodard?
I'm in favor of the sign. I drive by that property all the time, and I didn't even know there was a coffee shop there until they put their flag thing up. And then I still didn't even know the clinic was there when I went to the coffee shop. So they need some type of a sign to let people know they're there.
I have just one other thought, and I'm sure it's probably already been thought about, but is there a sign already in the works, or do you need to have some kind of a temporary thing? Do we need to worry about addressing something temporary in the meantime, or? Go ahead.
We've already purchased the sign.
Okay.
We had intended to install it. After getting surveys completed, we found the issue of our property line is further away from the highway than we anticipated.
Okay, so this shouldn't take long to get installed then?
Correct.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, any other discussion? Commissioner Costin can't discuss this one, so he just gets to listen. So, and it looks like if we have no other discussion, we will then call the roll, please.
Vice Chair Halsted,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodard,
Yes?
Commissioner Glendenning,
Yes.
Chair Twait,
Yes.
Commissioner Fikes,
Yes.
the motion passes.
All right, and there is a 15-day appeal period that an affected party could file with the clerk's office. Not likely, and then once that time is run, then you can go ahead and install. So, appreciate it. Thank you.
Can I just clear it? You still need a special use permit through the council before you can install.
Oh.
Thank you.
Oh, well. I say install. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Thank you very much.
Procedurally, 15 days.
All right. We are going to move on then. We have no unfinished business under G. We took care of new business. That takes us to reports. And since we do not have a council member here tonight, we will move on to item I2, Borough Planning and Commissioner Fikes.
Alrighty. We had a session on, oh my goodness, December 11th. And we had before us 12 plats. 8 of them were reviewed and passed. 4 were on the consent and already processed. And let me see. That brought us to a right-of-way vacation in the Fritz Creek area. And that one was passed. And then we had another right-of-way vacation in the Funny River area. And that one was also passed. That brought us to a utility easement vacation, and this one was in the Soldotna area over by the college, and that one was also passed. And that took us to our bylaws. Oh yeah, I knew there was something. So it was a quick and easy one, and then the rest of it was consumed with discussion for our newly passed bylaws. And so that was brought forward and digested amongst the commission as well as staff and the attorneys. And so they are now moving forward with the passed version. And so that is kind of a cool deal to be a part of. So it seems we are growing and moving in a positive direction and getting some edges and some insight on how they want the commission to move. So that was kind of a positive thing, I thought, with everybody's input. And then part of that was also they want to start having regular training sessions. So the first one was best practices for a quasi judicial findings. And so obviously they won't always have a light agenda, but this opportunity presented it that they had a light agenda. So quasi judicial findings are something that most of the commissions seem to struggle with. Everybody coming to the table has their own set of skills. And so to try and get everybody to kind of standardize how to gather that testimony and that written report and finalize it into findings so that should it go to arbitration or a hearing board, that we have some solid findings so that we can back up what we're actually approving and not approving. So that was hugely helpful for those on the commission and those that are new to the commission. So that was kind of a nice thing to be a part of. So after that, director's on vacation until February. So with that, we adjourned.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, we will move on to item I3, Administration. Director Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair Twait. First, thank you for those that attended the work session and giving me your 1 hour. I will probably follow up with an email just kind of summarizing what we talked about as well as what I'm asking of your commission. What I would probably do in the first meeting in January to comply with our requirements for the historic preservation is a summary. I didn't go over it. In the preservation plan, it says, as the administrator, planning and zoning, that I summarize all these changes when it comes to historic preservation and present it to your commission. And it's also something similar that we have to do on an annual basis for as being a certified local government to get grant funding for historic preservation. So I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's something we do yearly with the State Historic Preservation. We're letting you know how many meetings we've done that dealt with historic preservation, the backgrounds of your commission, how that meets the qualifications of being part of the program and so forth, and what goals and visions and things, action plans that have taken place towards this. So expect that in the first meeting of June. And then a few things to remind you. The borough's flood map update appeal period ends January 9th, 2024. So if you know of anyone that's affected by the flood throughout the borough and Kenai, the appeal period ends for the map update. I wanted to share with you that there is a resolution being placed on council's packet on the 3rd to add a half-time additional staffing per planning and zoning. So right now I do have a half-time, but the intent when I split into two, that I would find another half-time and make it a full-time, because I've always had one full-time admin. Since I already have a half-time, I would love to have a full-time planner. That will save a lot of my day-to-day tasks that just absorbs a lot of my time. In addition to that, as I mentioned to you, I'll be getting a code enforcement software that will streamline a lot of the letters, reminders, and documentations, that if we were to pursue litigation, we have the documentation, a press of the button, consolidate out the notes, no more taking the time and compiling a case. So as we get forward in that, then I can work towards a standard of operating procedures for code enforcement. Because that's the problem, is I kind of been holding back because coming in and trying to piecemeal a lot of things, I don't want to issue a fine for one person and not for all. I feel like it's appropriate for me to come up with a plan and be fair as I move towards something like that. So I've been hesitant for that reason. Once we get the software in place, update all our records, and then come up with a plan, and hopefully get support that, maybe it's a tier process. Whatever that looks like, it's a policy that will adopt that future. Anyone who takes over code enforcement can apply the same methods. And then In the upcoming meeting, you'll be seeing commission and committee review process. For those of you that took the survey, the clerk will be bringing back kind of what was mentioned and then working with you as a commission on your goals or what things you want to see change depending on what was mentioned in the survey. So the clerk will be presenting that. And then I'm working with the borough on the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. And I got a better idea what that grant is. It's an action plan. In 2022, maybe around July, August, City Council approved a resolution to agree to be a joint applicant in the grant, that the borough will be the lead and the rest of other cities, Seward, Soldovia, Soldotna, Woodby, and Homer would be joint applicants. They got approved the grant for, I think, to be honest, I can't remember off the top of my head. So as a joint applicant, we owe $21,500 in kind or monetary. And so I reviewed all the RFP as a grader, and I have a better understanding of it. So it's going to be a 14-month project starting hopefully in January, and then it's expected to end February. They're hiring a consultant to really evaluate corridors where there's high volume of crash, areas where pedestrians are at high risk when they travel, bicyclists, all types of everything, vehicles, non-motorized, areas where we can improve sidewalks, making wider roads, creating barriers to prevent road crash, extreme cases, death. So the consultants will be doing that. They're going to analyze all the data, compile it, work with every city, kind of what data we have, which I don't think we have much data in terms of that. So then the question is, next year, do I add on a budget, depending on the needs of the consultant, to do a study like that, to provide so that we give it to the consultant so they can provide us action plans? Because that's the intent of it, is once they have adopted an action plan, then the next one is an implementation plan, which they can then get another grant. So there's a two-step process. We have to come up with an action plan first, and then we can get further grant to do an implementation. So I definitely learned a lot reading RFPs. It took me 8 hours. But it gave me a better idea of what the scope, the intent is, to help us be prepared when next year comes around and the consultants are here asking us, what data do you have to ensure that they're making informed decisions, or data summarizing that this is corridors we need to focus on, areas that we really need to focus on, and what does that look like in terms of actionable plans. So I'm excited for that. Other than that, I mean, it's the end of the year. I greatly appreciate your commission and the engagement that we have. I really think we're growing and we're having good discussion, and hopefully I'm reminding you that your role is very important and you make really impactful decisions. So I love what I do, and hopefully I can make you be successful while you're here as a commissioner. So I appreciate it. Thank you. Oh. Yes, and in the audience, we have one of our new commissioners, Sonia. She is in back. She was here for our work session, so she'll be joining us in the new year. And Commissioner Glendening this is his last meeting with us as commissioner. For now, we'll see. And also Commissioner Greenberg's last meeting, but we don't know where he's at tonight.
He's leaving too?
Yeah.
Greenberg was leaving?
Yep.
Yeah, we were okay with Jim going.
He's a good GIS guy. He's got a lot of resources.
Yeah, well.
I know, but he's
All right,
also
so
busy.
we'll keep moving here. Do we have any questions for Director Mitchell? Commissioner Glendening?
Yes, I do. I'm reading here in the Kenai City Council December 20th notes, and I'm looking at a discussion action about virtual meeting participation. How does that impact us? Were you at the meeting, or can you speak to it, or can you help us out?
Director Mitchell?
Thank you, Chair Dwight, and thank you, Commissioner Glendening, for the question. I was at the meeting because I was there for the Oilers plat, right-of-way vacation and street naming. The clerk is going to come back. There was discussion about how it would impact. Ultimately, it sounds like a consideration is that required participants would be allowed to Zoom in. But not for people who just want to come in and provide comments. If those who are affected parties, just like next door or someone in the community wanted to provide comments, they wouldn't be able to do so. Obviously, these were just discussions, but the clerk will be bringing forth a resolution or ordinance.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense, because we're kind of hard on some folks that, wanted to have a conditional use permit or whatnot, and you have to be here, and by having something that's straightforward and projectable, and yeah, I think that's a good idea. Just technology, and we can overcome that. So, yeah.
Anyone else? All right. Then we will move on to item J, additional public comments. Anyone wanting to come forward? Good job. All right, next meeting is January 10th. Anyone besides Jim not going to be here?
I'll be moving on to my new duties on the 11th.
Oh, very good. All right, commissioners' comments and questions. Let's save Mr. Glendenning for last. Let's go Commissioner Woodard.
I just want to thank the city for their snow removal on Christmas Eve day. That was awesome. They did an awesome job.
Thank you for reminding me about that. I have a picture I'd like to share with somebody. Commissioner Hall or Vice Chair Halstead.
Well, I'm very sad because now I got to find someone new to pick on with Jim leaving. So I'm looking at you, Ms. Woodard. You're now on my sights. And then, thank staff for lunch or dinner tonight. That was good. I don't know if this is something about my weight, but how come my candy dish got smaller? I had a bigger dish. Just, anyways, no, it was great being with you guys again. Another fun adventure, and yeah, bye, Jim. I'll miss you.
All right, Commissioner Costin.
Yeah, I kind of look forward to working this comp plan and the historic zone work ahead of us. So that's kind of something I've been looking at for a while to get engaged with. So, and again, Jim, we'll miss you.
I'm just a phone call away.
All right, Commissioner Fikes.
All good, but you got to come back in the audience at least for some testimony,
Oh, I'll figure a way to torment you.
All right, it just turned 7:48. Commissioner Glendenning.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Jeff. Well, I'm coming up on my 82nd year here on the planet, so it's time to let some of the younger folks pick up the row and plow a little bit. But it's been a pleasure doing all this. I've been on a few things over the borough and here back and forth, and the time is just flowing by, and I keep looking at things. I have I don't know, can we say I'm concerned but not worried about what happens, and we have a fine commission here and an excellent planner, director, and I think we're off to a good start for 2024, and just wish everybody health, wealth, and happiness in the coming year. Thank you.
Very good. Well, I will just say that, Jim, it's been a long time we've played together in either here or some variation, and I appreciate all the dedication and passion you have for the city of Kenai and what you've done. So that will continue, I'm sure, on to the next one. So appreciate that. And with nothing else before us, the meeting is adjourned.